I'd like to call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming tonight. It is our April 7th, 2025 Fairfield Planning Board meeting. First order of business is minutes from the March 3rd, 2025 meeting notes. Have you all had a chance to review those documents?
Yes.
If there are no changes, I would take a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Have a motion?
Second.
And second. All those in favor? Thank you. The next item, public hearings. We have two tonight. Reservoir Hill Subdivision Phase 2 application for DW LLC for a proposed expansion of 11 single-family residential lots consisting of 25.6 acres on Assessors Map 2, Lot 9 in the Rural Residential Land Use District. So we will open up that public hearing. Randy, if you'd like to speak to that issue, please.
Good evening. I'm Randy Butler from Dirigo Engineering, and as you said, this is Phase 2 of the subdivision. Phase 1 was approved a couple of years ago, which consisted of 13 lots, 11 of those being residential lots. One lot was for duplexes, another lot for light commercial use. And then later on, last May, added 3 more lots as kind of a revision to that amendment. So now we're seeking to add another 11 lots, which consists of Phase 2. 11 residential lots would require extending Reservoir Lane as well as Easy Street. And I guess that's the gist of it. We have done the permitting already. DEP permitting has already been completed through Phase 2, so this will be kind of the final link before they can start on that phase.
Okay.
I just noticed.
We are in public hearing. Any public here tonight for this hearing? Reservoir 2. Bill is here, I see. Any public comments to this item on our agenda? I will wait just a minute in case we have some zooming in.
Chad, is there anyone on Zoom?
There's nobody on.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, we'll close the public hearing for Reservoir Hill subdivision. And next public hearing, conditional use permit application for Sam Crockett Dispensary, LLC, to add outdoor medical cannabis cultivation on approximately 40,000 square feet fenced parcel of land located at 228 Norwich Walk Road on Assessors Map 5, Lot 66-1 in the Village Land Use District. I will open that public hearing on that item. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Harnish from Sam Crockett Dispensary, LLC. We propose an outdoor cannabis cultivation operation on an estimated 40,000 square feet fenced-in parcel in Fairfield. While the perimeter of the site is large for logistical reasons, the designated mature plant canopy, the area where cannabis plants are actively grown, will total 11,000 square feet, well within the 20,000 square foot limit set by the local ordinance. Just to speak a little bit on the cultivation design of the outdoor crop, the canopy consists of non-contiguous rows allowed for adequate airflow, ease of access, and operational efficiency. It's basically a fancy way of saying it's a single-file row with a lot of spacing in between plants. I've also included some diagrams that might illustrate a clear image of what I'm kind of trying to describe. In the first diagram in your packet, you'll see the proposed area. You'll see red outlined sections indicating the non-contiguous sections for plant rows. This is our way of measuring the canopy versus the length and width of the overall fenced-in structure. This non-contiguous way of measuring canopy is aligned with OCP's adult use standards, meaning you have to account for every square foot of plant canopy under the adult use rules, according to the state. So using that standard, which is the highest standard, as opposed to medical, we implemented those same standards for medical, even though it's not. So this clearly shows how the spacing in between plants will be aligned. It also allows for a vehicle to be driven in that area as well, just allowing plenty of space in between plants. Now, this whole model by design is to mitigate the odor. Now, if you have a bunch of plants grouped together in a fine, just without spacing in between the plants, your odor problem is going to be much larger if everything's spread out, if that makes sense. So by design, our approach is supposed to mitigate the odor naturally. In our planning board application, I included an odor control plan. I wanted to speak to number 2 in that plan, which discusses natural odor neutralizing strategies using biochar. Biochar is a carbon-rich porous material known for its ability to absorb and filter odor-causing compounds. It will be used in 2 primary ways. So we will strategically place the biochar along property boundaries in shallow trenches and odor buffing zones to intercept to intercept and neutralize odor before it travels off-site. In addition, we will be incorporating the biochar in the actual soil of the plant itself. For an analogy, you can think of it as like a sponge. It absorbs organic waste and the odor associated with it. In addition to our odor plan and the comments I just made, Mark Crockett, father of Sam Crockett, the business owner of Sam Crockett Dispensary, owns the property at 68 Middle Road in Fairfield, reducing the likelihood of nearby odor complaints. It's also worth noting, to my knowledge, in the last 3 years, at 228 Norwich Walk Road, we have not received any odor complaints. I guess closing statements here. I just want to circle back to the non-contiguous cultivation design. The method improves plant health and it enhances the drainage, meaning that there's a flow of water after irrigation, and all of that will go into trenches on either side of the proposed cultivation area. So sorry if I rambled a bit there, but that's everything that I have.
Good, thank you. We are in public hearing, so is there anybody here today to speak to? Please, would you come up to the podium?
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Haver. I live at 8610 Lots Road, Fairfield, Maine. I found out about this on the Fairfield community page. I'm a little disappointed and surprised that not more people showed up. As a homeowner there since 2006, we've already dealt with the catastrophe of PFAS in our soil, which adversely affects our property values. And we have his grow facility, well, not the grow facility, but the dispensary, and just up the road there's another one. Maybe they haven't received any odor complaints, but I can tell you, as a person who travels that road often, because my daughter lives in Norwich Walk, I smell very strong smells of marijuana. I'd like to ask you, right now you're not growing, but you do have the dispensary there. Where do you keep the marijuana at this point?
You mean after it's been grown or during the growing cycle?
The product that you have now,
Yeah.
where do you keep that at?
We have indoor storage facilities on that property where product is dried and cured and then stored indoors with a lot of ventilation and HVAC equipment to mitigate the odor. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and that's a huge concern for me because I can smell it very strongly when I drive by there, just driving by the road. I haven't made any official complaints to the town of Fairfield. I know that these type of facilities have an odor to them. I don't know if it's when you first just get your product in, but if we can already smell it when it's stored inside, I can't imagine how much worse it would be for us to have almost 1 acre with, you said 11,000 square feet of growing product. So I imagine it's going to be much worse. I don't want my property value to be adversely affected by people. We plan to sell in a few years. We're going to retire, we're going to move, and I can see this adversely affecting my property value. Also, I think traffic is a problem. If they're growing that much more, they're going to have that much more traffic coming in, buying. And I've seen a huge decline in our little town of Fairfield since 2006 when I moved here. And I know that this is medically grown marijuana for medical purposes, but I know that people can walk into these dispensaries and get their medical card right there at a good number of them. So how many are actually needing it for medical and how many of them are just going in and getting a medical card? And I'm former law enforcement, I'm anti-drug, I know that these are medically approved people coming in, but I do feel that it brings a certain element into our community, and I've seen our community go rapidly downhill. I'm very opposed to this. I'm disappointed that not more people have shown up, but that's basically what I have to say. I'm concerned about property values, traffic, and the decline of our town, and the smell. The smell is just going to be horrendous. And some people are complaining about sappy. I never smell sappy, but I'll definitely be able to smell marijuana. And I do want to try to keep up my property value because when we retire, that's our major source of what we're going to have to live on the rest of our lives. So I don't want that being adversely affected. That's basically it.
Very good.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Anybody else for this public hearing on Crockett Dispensary? Any in Zoom?
There is no one.
There is no one. Thank you, Chad. That being said, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you for your comments. Unfinished business, none. New business, Randy Butler, Darrow Engineering, Representative Bill Stanborn, DW LLC on Reservoir Hill subdivision application for Phase 2 to the development, 11 more single-family dwellings, Lot 17 through 28, on Tax Map 2, Lot 9, Zone Rural Residential, on 26.6 acres. Discussion and decision. Okay, what do we have for questions or comments from our board on this subdivision? Oh, go ahead, Max.
You want me to go?
Oh, well, go ahead.
I saw in here, I'm going to try to find it, a small plan that looked like it showed contours and final grading along with property lines. But I don't remember if we got a large format of that.
I guess I'm not sure which plan you're referring to. I did include the proposed construction plans there for Phase 2, which would have mainly plan and profile for the roads. Do you remember a specific lot or location, Max?
No, it wasn't. It was small.
Okay.
I think it, and it wasn't included in the DEP application drawings. But I guess I can go without it. So I see that it appears, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the T turnarounds at the end of, is it Easy Street and Reservoir Lane are now public right-of-way.
Correct.
So that's good. A comment that I was, or a question that I had was around the stormwater detention ponds. Who will retain ownership of those, and is there an easement access for the town to be able to discharge roadway runoff to those ponds long-term?
Since Ranger Construction will have a presence out there, they'll be doing the maintenance of anything as far as detention ponds.
What happens if Ranger Construction sells to me and I say,
That will go along with it. You know, any responsibility would be transferred, conveyed to you for upkeep of those.
so is there an easement or some sort of protection for the town to be able to discharge runoff from the roadways to those ponds, irregardless of the ownership of the parcels that have those ponds?
There's no formal easement. We could do that, I guess, if necessary. That's DEP, I think, is going to have final say on that as far as this has all gone through site law, site review, and so as part of that stormwater management, the water's, by necessity, is required to go there in order to comply with that license. If that's satisfactory, hopefully that would meet the town's needs. I'm trying to remember which specific detention pond or which specific features are. There's one on just to the west of Lot 7. There is a detention basin there. I think that is the only detention basin that I'm aware of that is actually taking runoff from the town right away. The wet pond that is on Ranger's construction site, that will only be taking runoff from that site itself. The wet ponds that are on the duplex site is only taking runoff from the duplex site itself. So I think it's only that detention pond is taking runoff from the water. There is further up on, Chad, can you change to the next screen, please? What he's showing there is phase 1. The next plan is phase 2. And there is a buffer, I know, that's receiving runoff up at the end of Easy Street.
And I don't know what the town has done previously, and Nicole, you might be able to answer, for protection around discharge of roadway water.
I haven't been involved in any roads that were given to the town, so I'm not sure prior to 13 years ago who, requested easements. When I did work in the town of Skowhegan, I did see someone cut a culvert and forbid the water to flow onto their property because they wanted to develop it in the future. And so they stopped the stormwater in that town until the town purchased an easement from that developer.
So
it
doesn't
does happen.
that become the responsibility of the town of Fairfield? They accept this road and they take this road and they're plowing and maintaining the roads and maintaining ditch lines. Isn't that part of the town's maintenance if there's an issue or problem with these detention areas?
Correct. When he goes to offer the roads to the town, that would have to be settled at that time, because till such time, they're Bill's roads.
Right.
So when he does offer them, he could offer them with an easement at that time.
I think that would be important for the town to protect the town's ability to essentially get rid of the water that falls on the street.
Correct. Right. If Bill sells his company in the future to someone else, they could plug that culvert and refuse that stormwater to enter that.
Well, perhaps. They would be in violation of DEP, so.
Correct.
For whatever enforcement they might offer. I will say we did include an easement, as I look at lots 17 and 18, I believe it is, off from the end of Reservoir Lane, where we've got that culvert, I think it's a 30-inch or 36-inch culvert crossing. We did include an easement just off that northeast corner of Lot 18. So there is an easement there. And if necessary, we could easily add a drainage easement up off the end of Easy Street, because there's water coming off the road, actually on both sides of the road there. So we could easily make those drainage easements there as well to secure that right for the town.
I think that would be very beneficial to the town, to have those drainage easements established now as opposed to in the future.
I don't currently know. The only one that is drawn on the plan is that one at the northeast corner, Lot 18.
Hey, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the town of Fairfield has that drainage easement, then they can control their destiny. Someone can't plug it, someone can't stop it, someone can't
Correct.
try to create buildable lots.
Right.
Because if it's an easement, it's recorded and it's
Right.
at the registry.
Right.
So that would make sense at the time of transfer, or if the project is sold out.
Right, so it could be either addressed as a condition on the plans.
Correct.
To require drainage easement for those locations.
That
So there's at
makes
least,
sense.
At what point does the town take over the roads, Nicole?
Completion of the pavement.
Okay, so we could make a condition of approval that prior to accepting the roads, the town council is accepting of a drainage easement that's protective of the town.
correct.
And then doesn't stop our progress here.
Right.
But inevitably, if the town council says this is not protective of us, they won't take ownership of the road.
Right.
And then it would be a private road after that.
Correct, right. So there'd be those two locations at the end of Easy Street, that one location we already got defined at the end of Reservoir Lane, the location at Detention Pond just west of Lot 7. Those come to mind, and I'll dig into it a little bit more to see if there are other locations. But
Yeah, I was thinking the culverted areas bringing water down into the duplex
Okay, correct.
lot.
Yes,
Down
off
into
of-
those.
At the bend in Easy Street, correct. Yes, we've got water coming from the north side of Easy Street, and it is discharging into I think it's a meadow, either a meadow or a wooded buffer onto what would be the duplex property. So
And then it
that'd be
runs
those.
down through the duplex property into those two detention ponds down closer to Orange Walk Road.
Yeah,
it
some of
looked like.
that, I believe you're right. I think some of that does, and some of it also goes to a meadow buffer. So between the two of those, that's another area that would
Yeah,
need to be.
so we'd want to just make sure that
Yes.
the town has those easements, or the
Right.
council approves of the road ownership.
Now,
With
are
the
any of
fence in
those going
place.
to be on private property at the duplex location? In other words, if those areas are private property, the town won't accept them or maintain them if needed. It's on private property.
Right, yes, it's on private property, but I think Max's point is to have an easement across those to get water to the wet ponds, which will be maintained, currently owned by Ranger, or DW LLC, I should say. So that would secure your rights to discharge water to those facilities.
Right, that would be my concern for the town out in this new development, having no place to put water.
Correct. You're right. Again, I understand your concern to make sure it happens, but at least theoretically, DEP would be involved as well if something did cross the line. If somebody changed the drainage pattern, then DEP should be notified.
What would DEP be able to do at that point?
That's a good question. How quickly would they respond, and what would their enforcement mechanisms be?
Right. What would they be able to do to a
Right.
private property owner at that point to say, the town's going to discharge water across your property?
Right.
I think that would be a concern.
Yep. Yeah, so that's certainly something that's reasonable to add as a condition to the plan.
In the original,
I assume you're good with that?
Oh, don't sound like we got much to it.
Well, there shouldn't be too much of an encumbrance, essentially, just securing the town's right.
Paperwork, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Other questions or comments on this application? Reservoir Hill.
in the packet that we received ahead of time, it had some notes in here about the performance guarantee for the roadway. And it looks like a 2022 estimate for the performance guarantee was $478,000. That looks like it has been renewed for this phase 2 work. But the estimate appears to be the same dollar value of $478,800 or $748,800. But there's a substantial amount of additional roadway here. Is this?
There's two bonds there.
Right.
Oh, there's.
Yes.
One is for the phase 2, completely separate from the
Right, there's an additional one for $346,000 for Phase 2 is,
Oh, okay.
yep.
And did we get provided a cost estimate prepared by Dirigo, similar to what we did for phase 1?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't prepare one. We had Ranger prepare that, and I haven't seen the final doc, as far as a breakdown, but their estimate was that $346,000.
So has our public works director had an opportunity to review cost?
I believe he did. He said he spoke with Bill this week, and he provided a memo to the board after his discussion with Bill that he would recommend the bond be renewed and combined for Phase 2. So apparently he and Bill reviewed the punch list together.
correct.
Thank you.
He doesn't mention that in his letter.
No. I could call him.
Randy, you as the engineer on the project feel that the 300,000 number, wherever it is, $346,135 is sufficient for this additional roadway?
I haven't actually run the numbers. I reached out their contractor. I gave that to them to run the numbers on those, so I haven't reviewed that. I just got the number this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to independently review that.
Do it by the linear foot, it's actually more money. You can do it right here if you want. Just measure it out by the linear foot.
More money for what?
It costs more money for phase 2 per linear foot than the original one.
Okay.
And so you took the original $478,800, divided that by the linear footage of phase 1 roadway, and then dollar per linear foot phase 2 is higher than dollar per linear foot phase 1.
Divide it because there's more culverts or less culverts. So it's an actual takeoff, just like a bid. I didn't just do simple math. I actually took the cube cats, gravel, and the linear foot feet of culvert. But it turns out that if you do that, if you do it by the linear foot, the new road at phase 2 is less linear feet by quite a
He needs to
bit.
go to the podium.
Wait,
Pump the feet like a finger. If you measured it by the linear foot, it's more money for phase 2 than the cost of phase 1. But I didn't just simply measure it out, it just turns out that way. I did it by the cubic yard, linear foot of culvert, subgrade cut, subgrade fill, but that's how it turns out.
and I understand, Bill, that you do this every day and your cost estimate's probably very accurate, but you're also the developer. So I feel it's the best interest of the planning board to make sure that the engineer on the project agrees with that number, and then it's approved by our public works director. So I would think we as a board could make a condition of approval that the number presented in the site improvement bond for phase 2 is reviewed and approved by both the engineer on the project as well as our public works director.
Fine with me.
And I guess the biggest concern is if this gets sold out, that the buyer has to accept these bonds and these numbers. Okay, because they're going to get stuck with them.
Right. Right.
Anything else, ladies and gentlemen, about this applicant?
I don't believe I have anything else of concern.
Okay. Hearing nothing, I'd call for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the application as presented with conditions of approval that A, the engineer on the project as well as the town's public works director review the bond, the Phase 2 site development bond value and approve it. And then condition of approval B, I guess, would be that the town council approve of the stormwater easement associated with the roadway development prior to accepting the roadway as town-owned property.
I have a motion with 2 conditions. Got a second? Thank you very much. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'd call for a vote. All those in favor?
Do we have to do the findings of fact
You should.
first?
We should do findings of fact
Yeah, for the record.
for the record. The Town of Fairfield subdivision ordinance, Article 7, final plan for major subdivision, 8.3B, finding of fact conclusions. Date, April 7th, 2025. Name, Reservoir Hill subdivision, Phase 2, Map 2, Lot 9, off Norwich Walk Road. The Fairfield Planning Board has acted on your final subdivision application for Phase 2 of Reservoir Hill and Phase 2 as follows. 1. The owner of the property is DW LLC, has demonstrated legal interest in the property by providing a copy of the warranty deed, Somerset County Register of Deeds, Book 4019, page 133. The applicant is Randy Butler, P.E., Derigo Engineering, representative for DW LLC. The location of the property is off Norwich Walk Road in Fairfield. Tax assesses map 2, lot 9, with phase 2 occupying 25.6 plus or minus acres. The property is not located in shoreland zone. The property is not in the flood hazard area. The applicant proposes in Phase 2 final plan to subdivide the 25.6 acres of land into 11-lot subdivision on the subject property to create 11 single-family residential lots. A completed phase subdivision plan application was submitted on March 27, 2025. Public hearing was held on April 7, 2025. Letters were mailed to abutters on 3/8/25, and a notice was placed in the newspaper on March 30th, 2025, informing all of this meeting on Phase 2 Reservoir Hill subdivision plan. Water is to be supplied by private wells to supply the subdivision. The well locations are shown on this plan. See Attachment 10 and Attachment 22. Water supply reports, it indicates that there is adequate water for the proposed subdivision. Fire Chief Bickford's letter to the Planning Board requires every residential dwelling unit to have a main office of the fire marshal's approved sprinkler system. See number 4, lot covenants and restrictions on plan. Sewage is to be disposed by, see Attachment 9, page 51-66, showing the private subsurface waste disposal test pit soil classification on each lot. The location of the test pits is shown on the subdivision plan. Site evaluations for each lot meeting and requirement of the main plumbing rules was completed by a site evaluator. Report on this test pits is supplied in Attachment 9, Reservoir Hill Subdivision Phase 2. A stormwater drainage plan has been prepared by Derigo Engineering for the DEP site location of development permitting. A large plan has been submitted, site location DEP permit, and the NRPA Tier 1 permit are approved and received on 4/12/23. Conclusions. Notices to abutters were mailed on March 28, 2025, and a notice was placed in the Morning Sentinel on March 30th, 2025. The Phase 2 Reservoir Hill final subdivision plan shows the proposed street extensions shown as Easy Street and Reservoir Lane. The Phase 2 Reservoir Hill subdivision plan boundary lines of the tract are based on a plan titled Boundary Survey Division of Land, Kennebec Water District, dated August 21st, 2007, by Garbachik Surveyors, Inc. The Phase 2 Reservation Hill subdivision has been signed by a Maine licensed land surveyor. The proposed lot lines are shown on the plan, and the lots have been surveyed by a Maine licensed land surveyor with Boynton and Pickett LLC, professional surveyors. It shows the street frontage minimum 200 feet per lot and a final plan. The corners have been located on the ground and marked by a 5/8 rebar capped with PLS number 2189, Edward M. Lawrence. Proposed subdivision, proposed covenants and deed restrictions, attachment 6, and stamped on the plan. Contour lines are shown, 2-foot intervals shown on stormwater plan. The proposed subdivision contains Phase 2, proposed to divide 25.6 acres into 11 single-family residential lots. The proposed streets are shown on Phase 2 subdivision plan. Prior to offering the streets to the municipal offices for acceptance as public ways, a written certification signed by a Maine state of Maine registered professional engineer certifying that the proposed ways meet the design and construction requirements of the Fairfield subdivision ordinance. As-built plans for the proposed public ways may only be submitted to the municipal offices upon completion of the street construction and only after 75% of all lots in the approved subdivision plan are filled and the Somerset County Registry of Deeds has been developed, received for final certificates of occupancy for the structures from the town of Fairfield. The subdivision open space is shown as 22.96 acres on Phase 2 Reservoir Hill subdivision plan. Traffic impact analysis, attachment 24, dated 9/16/21, shows the traffic count by Sewell for the subdivision. MDOT entrance permit number 29955 dated 7/22/21 has been received and approved for the combined large entrance and exit. MDOT is in agreement with the allowing one oversized entrance and exit onto the Norwich Walk Road. The applicant requested a waiver of Article 12.2F requirement of 2 street connections and allow this one MDOT-approved entrance with two-way traffic and an island in the middle. The planning board accepted the MDOT permit approval for the combined entrance exit with an island onto the Norwich Walk Road as a waiver approved on 6/6/2022. An email from David Allen, P.E., MDOT traffic engineer, on 10/25/22 informing the planning board that no modification permit to 29955 is needed for the self-storage units on the Ranger commercial lot as the subdivision lots decreased substantially. Aesthetic, cultural, and natural values, the proposed subdivision will not have an undue adverse effect on the scenic and natural beauty of the area, aesthetics, historical sites, significant and wildlife habitat identified by the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife or the municipality, or rare, irreplaceable natural areas of any public rights for physical or visual access of the shoreline. The Phase 2 Reservoir Hill subdivision plan maintains an open vacant lot 2 with a pond area to maintain scenic and natural beauty of the area. Also, the plan shows many areas of vegetated buffers that will be maintained throughout the plan. See Covenant 10, number 10C. conformity with the local ordinances and plans, the Phase 2 Reservoir Hill subdivision plan conforms with the duly adopted subdivision ordinance and comprehensive plan. In making this determination, the planning board has interpreted the ordinance and plan. Yes, the proposed plan will add much-needed local residential housing for the people who wish to live and work in Fairfield area. It conforms with the Fairfield Comprehensive Plan, expanding residential housing in the rural residential land use district. Financial and technical capacity. Subdivider has adequate financial and technical capacity to meet the standards of this section. See statement in attachment 4, bank statement pending.
And you did receive that this evening, so that needs to be updated.
Okay.
4/7/25 received.
Gotcha. We did see that. The subdivision ordinance, Article 8, requirements for final subdivision plan performance guarantees. DW LLC has submitted a performance bond to the town council. They approved the performance bond on 10/26/22. The bond has been extended for 2 years until 5/1/25. Construction cost estimate for the additional roadway bond needs renewal, which we have received.
Correct.
Freshwater wetlands, all freshwater wetlands within the proposed subdivision have been identified on any map submitted as part of the application regardless of the size of the wetlands. Yes. The river stream or brook, any river stream or brook within the abutting proposed subdivision has been identified on the map submitted as part of the application. For the purpose of this section, river, stream, or brook has the same meaning as in Title 38, Section 480B, subsection 9. Yes. Stormwater. The Phase 2 of the final subdivision plan will provide adequate stormwater management. A stormwater plan detail was previously submitted to the planning board along with the DEP permitting. On April 12, 2023, obtained a site location of development permit from the Maine DEP Bureau of Land Services, and on 4/12/23 obtained a NRPA Tier 1 permit from the Maine Department of Environmental Protection, Bureau of Land Resources, and Army Corps. Municipal boundaries. If the proposed development crosses municipal boundaries, it will not cause unreasonable traffic congestion or unsafe condition with any of the public ways adjoining the municipality in which the part of the subdivision is located. No, this Phase 2 of the subdivision plan will not be in Waterville. The parcel of land has not been timber harvested in violation of liquidation harvesting rules adopted pursuant to Title 12, Section 8869, subsection 14, no. A written request for waiver permitting the planning board for Article 12.2F requirement of 2 street connections and allow this one MDOT-approved entrance with 2-way traffic and an island in the middle. Waiver granted on 6/6/22, approved by the Maine DOT permit 29955. Written request for a waiver submitted to the planning board for Article 12.2G requiring 5-foot wide sidewalks in the subdivision. Waiver was granted on 5/1/23 to Article 12.2G. No 5-foot wide sidewalks required, since none have been required in other approved subdivisions. Following standards of the town subdivision ordinance have not been met and are conditions of approval. Article 8.2N, cost estimates, a performance guarantee of the street expansion.
So you have your performance guarantee, but you did not get your cost estimate?
That's
So that
correct.
was the condition that you
Condition of
set,
approval.
right? And the second condition was, look back here,
The stormwater.
the stormwater easement. And I got the vote, was Max, seconded by Monica, and passed 4-0.
Okay?
So,
I have a question before finalizing my vote.
okay.
On number 7 of conclusions, could you just explain to us, Nicole, it looks as though 75% of the lots in the approved subdivision plan have to be developed before we accept the roadway?
As a town, because Sunrise Drive, this is before I started working here, what was explained to me is Sunrise Drive was supposed to be a 14 or 20 lot, I'm not quite sure how many, because I was not employed here when that got developed. So the town accepted the road, and only a couple lots had been sold. So what the purchasers of that subdivision did is they bought the adjoining lots. So the town adopted a road that they thought would be occupied by multiple
Lots of-
homes.
yep.
And it ended up, they've been maintaining that private, well, it's a public road
For very few taxpayers.
for probably 4 houses where they expected it to be a, and I'm guessing maybe 12 or 14 lot subdivision. And it ultimately was only 4 residents because the residents purchased the abutting lots.
So I think that's an effort to make sure that the town is maintaining a road of taxpayers, and homes.
Right, I get that. I just wanted to, I had not seen that before, so.
That's the only one I know of in town, and I'm not,
Okay, the developer is aware of this? Okay. All right, I have no problem
We
with
do
it.
this so often.
yeah, we haven't done one in a while.
Yeah, I mean,
No, Bill's our guinea pig.
I have no problem with it from the town's perspective. I think it's very protective. I just was hoping to get some clarity on it, so thank you.
Okay, so, anything else on this application, Nicole?
Nothing else I can think of. So we had a motion by Max, a second by Monica, a vote, and I saw 4
Yep.
for the approval. Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Randy.
All right, and when you have the plan, you'll have it for the board to sign? Correct. Okay, and I'll contact the board members. It's
That's
just
fine.
not ready tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Next item, Brian Harnish, representative of Sam Crockett Dispensary LLC, conditional use permit application for an outdoor medical cannabis cultivation on approximately 40,000 square feet fenced parcel of land locating at 228 Norris Walk Road on Assessors Map 5, Lot 66-1 in the Village Land Use District. So, the outstanding question on this application is the odor control, okay? And I spoke to the gentleman that lives across the road from you. It was in my office earlier today. And I said, hey, you coming to the meeting tonight? He said, no, I'm really not. And I said, well, you know, on this discussion, is this open grow? He said, well, I smell that all the time. He lives across the road. He actually, his family owned that property prior to Liebrook's taking that over and selling. So if you've got an indoor grow and it can be smelled by the neighbors, it's very clear in that ordinance, thou shalt not pollute air, water, or soil. So one would consider smelling that, and it goes back to a question 3 years ago where a lady on Military Avenue kept calling the highway department to come pick up this dead skunk. And the highway department would go to Military Avenue, no dead skunk. She called the next day, when are you going to come pick up this dead skunk? Highway department goes over, can't find a dead skunk. Finally, I think code went over, and if I'm speaking out of turn, correct me, and finds out that there was a grow in a basement, and the exhaust fan out the basement window was pointed towards the neighbor's living room. So what was the resolution of that? Was that a legal grow?
No.
Okay.
No, and I think the house went to foreclosure.
Oh, okay. So the moral to that story is, this is legal and this is licensed and this is approved, but, to ask our neighbors to put up with air pollution, which it is, okay, that's an issue. What kind of, and you spoke of, name that product again that you said you're burying in trenches and putting in the soil. What is that?
It's called biochar.
And what is biochar?
Biochar is a porous material that's derived from a charcoal, essentially, and it absorbs organic waste odors.
And keep in mind that this town is very sensitive to putting things on our ground. I'm the proud owner of 200 contaminated acres, so I can speak to that.
Oh, well, this product is actually not harmful. It's actually beneficial for the soil.
And that's exactly what DEP told us when they were spreading it in our fields. Exact words.
Well, I'm not the
I'm not
DEP.
comparing PFAS to biochar, okay, because I'm not familiar with the product, but I also wasn't familiar with sanitary waste products either. So, question. What happens if you got a conditional permit tonight saying as long as we don't get complaints and smell? What happens if we start getting complaints and you're in the middle of this 40,000 square foot project? What happens?
Well, it's 11,000 square feet of canopy, which is...
There's 43,560 square feet is an acre. That 40,000 area of grow, not just your flowering, but this 40,000, square feet, it's pretty close to an acre. I mean, that's 200 feet square.
of a complete fenced-in area.
That is correct.
Yeah,
And
the whole
within that,
premise wouldn't be filled from fence to fence,
Right.
wall to wall, though.
right, and again, you had said, and I think you misspoke, you said spreading out the plants would make it worse.
Oh, I didn't mean to say it would make it worse. If I said
That's
that,
what
my
you said.
apologies.
You said, oh yeah, spreading out the plants.
I'm a little nervous, so I'm
No,
sorry.
and that's cool. We're not here to make anybody feel bad or nervous.
Public speaking's not my thing.
Absolutely, and don't misunderstand my points, but speaking to the neighbor and hearing one person, thank you for coming tonight, and everybody drives up the road and if they have to put up with that, how do you explain it to a 4-year-old kid sitting next to you with the windows down in your car?
I take these complaints very seriously, and to date, I have not heard a complaint, so this is news to me.
If you haven't had a complaint, that, I think, means the people that smell it are not complaining. I mean, they know you're running a business, you're trying to run retail, you're trying to do your thing, and that's cool. We know that. But, at some point, when one person shows up and says, I'm concerned about my property values, Fairfield is a little sensitive to property values because the 200 acres I own, I can't make a dime selling grass, selling hay, selling anything, growing anything. Okay, our only salvation is fence it in and cover it with solar panels. Okay, that's our only salvation.
Well, and if I could add, it's not just biochar is our only line of defense for odor, and spacing of plants is not the only line of defense for odor as well. Part of the proposed plan is to plant vegetative buffer around the proposed fenced-in area and along the entire perimeter of the lot itself. So the whole property lot would have additional vegetative buffers in addition to the forest line. So in addition to the biochar, the spacing of the plants, we will be adding vegetative buffers in addition to lavender and lemongrass to help with the scents as well. And then if we received a complaint, we do have additional steps to deploy as well. And those are essential oil diffusers, essentially. So instead of smelling, well, if it was a cannabis complaint smell, you would smell more of an essential oil smell. That could be a number of, it could be lavender, which is probably what we would use. So it wasn't just biochar. You know, there are a lot of steps that we take this very seriously. You know, this is also my livelihood as well. So, you know, and the employees on that property as well. You know, there's 100+ employees, and you know, everyone thinks cannabis businesses are thriving. We make a lot of money. We are struggling. So this is a kind of a last-ditch effort for the business to use the season, the sun's free energy to cultivate this product. And we're actually shutting down a lot of the indoor cultivation because the costs are just too much for us to actually make a profit. So we're shutting down a lot of the indoor cultivation stuff. So a lot of those smells are probably going to go away in terms of the HVAC ventilation. And again, if we received a complaint about that, I would take it very personal to implore extra efforts in the ventilation systems, extra carbon filters, whatever it would take, frankly. So it wasn't just biochar. There are lots of layers to this.
And keep in mind, we're not just picking on, you know, marijuana grows. This board received an application years ago for a sewage treatment plant on 201.
Okay.
And that sewage treatment plant was turned down through this board because the developer could not guarantee that we would not smell raw sewerage when the windows were open in July. Based on air pollution, that doesn't meet our ordinance. So I'll go back to my original question, and I apologize, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, sir, it's
I have
fine.
these questions. What would happen if Nicole, code office, got calls driving down the road, geez, you know, we really smell that outdoor grow, geez, there must be harvesting, we smell the outdoor grow, or the neighbors really start kicking up? I mean, is there some language on a condition of approval that would say the townspeople of Fairfield won't complain about smells?
A condition of approval that would address a complaint. Is that the question?
Well, the question is, and I'll go back to the original question, what happens if this thing goes in, this outdoor grow, and I get you, the sun, the seasons, these plants, they naturally want to grow outdoors.
Yes,
And with the indoor grows, there's all kinds of requirements for exhaust, ventilation, and cleaning that air and not creating those smells. It's very clear in the state applications that you fill out, correct?
Yes, sir.
None of that exists on an outdoor grow, correct?
An odor mitigation plan?
Yes.
No, we still submit an odor mitigation plan to the state for an outdoor cultivation
Okay.
property.
Okay. So what would happen if, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, maybe this works great, maybe this biochar is an amazing product, maybe what you're doing is going to be fine, but the question is, what happens if this becomes a problem down the road?
Well, I believe our deployable system of the essential oils is it's a seasonal thing. So for 9 weeks, that's the flower cycle, and then the smelliest day is probably going to be your harvest day. That's one day. So to address, if everything's already operational and we're receiving even one complaint, we would take that seriously and either scale things back significantly in terms of the square footage, or we'd have to consider a greenhouse or a hoop house.
Do you take in consideration, for example, during harvest, which way the wind is blowing?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, we take into, in IPM control, integrated pest management, I've gone through those courses where you have to take into account the wind factors for spray and that sort of thing, drift and all of that. So again, take this very seriously.
Okay.
Nicole, from our ordinance perspective, what does it say around odor? I thought it was odor cannot travel beyond the property lines.
Correct. That's
So-
what it says.
Ultimately, we can approve this, and if odor travels beyond the property line, then it becomes a dispute around, is that taking place? And then
Right.
who in that case would make that call if it is or isn't? Because every single person has a different tolerance level to odor.
Correct.
So
I don't have a device to determine, what is odorous or isn't. Certainly when the farmers spread their fields, I get some calls for a few days until it rains.
Yep.
Right, so, yeah,
We smell floods from here, actually, if the wind's blowing just right.
correct.
does
So,
the state have a device that can measure?
I don't know. I don't know if
Odor,
OCP has
compound?
such a deal.
OCP's never measured odor using a device of any kind.
So, I mean, there's a lot of talk around odor control, but who's the ultimate judge of odor?
Fair
Is
question.
it our code enforcement officer? Because that leaves it up to our code enforcement officers.
I honestly don't know. Would you call the police and get a police report? I don't know.
Because
I don't-
ultimately, the business has to meet the ordinance.
Yes, sir.
And if it doesn't meet the ordinance, then the business has to stop production.
Understood.
So I think we can approve it, but it's a gamble on the development perspective around, are you able to meet the ordinance long-term? And I personally don't feel like we should tie an approval to complaints, because then the neighbor who doesn't like this can call up and complain eight
That's
times a
right.
day.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then we're tying it to a number of complaints.
Yeah,
and
and
they can get their friends to call
In which
and
case, I
complain.
probably wouldn't move forward with
So I
it.
think it really needs to be around the migration of odors off the site. And that is where I don't know who the ultimate authority to determine that is. So that's where I have I think it will fall on our code enforcement officer, unfortunately.
Right, and I don't have expertise in air and water,
So I think it would quickly be elevated to the Office of Cannabis Policy to
Correct.
come in and make a determination. And I think for me personally, I feel okay with approving this, and ultimately it'll be a situation around the Office of Cannabis Policy to say if odor is traveling from the site or not.
Understood.
So, and your point is well taken about which way the wind is blowing and when you're actually harvesting in that one day and which time of year it is and whether the wind's blowing at all. So you do have some control over that.
Yes, sir.
And some of the things you've mentioned here probably work fine. So how would you language the condition of approval tonight? And
So
again-
I wouldn't base it on complaints, and
Okay.
I would need a moment to ponder.
Okay? And again, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think that you get the intent that you meet the ordinance, and this board's probably trying to find a way to support this, but we'd like some guarantees or some conditions that say, if this is absolutely nutso, okay, for the whole month of August, the highway department's getting calls on skunks being run over.
Understood.
Okay? We got to have a method to say, wait a minute,
I would say the condition could be if OCP issues a notice of violation at that point in time, that would mean they've come out for an inspection and determined that odor's a problem. And if they issue a notice of citation, or I'm sorry, violation, in which case then that would be cause for us to shut down at that point,
or just amend.
or scale back.
Right, or just amend your processing time or period, or, when the wind's blowing.
Yeah, usually there's a
If-
little bit more detail based on the notice of violation, such and such caused this and this. So to your point, yes.
Yeah. You ever heard the statement, stinking Lincoln?
I think so, but I don't know what it means.
Ice fishing in East Grand Lake, we always drove to Lincoln, Maine. Lincoln, Maine had a paper mill, and it was right in town. And you could smell this thing 5 miles before Lincoln, and you could smell this thing 5 miles after Lincoln. It became known as Stinkin' Lincoln.
Okay.
I would be very disappointed, because I live on the Norriswalk Road, and I've lived here my entire life. I'd be very disappointed if we didn't come up with some rational approach to issue a permit, but have some controls on that, where we became Stinkin' Fairfield because of an outdoor grow that we put no controls on.
Yes, I take that comment very seriously. I do not want that to happen.
Okay, very
I
good.
think our ordinance is very much in agreement with that.
Yeah.
The odor shall not migrate off the site. I don't think we need a condition of approval. If odor is migrating off the site, the activity will need to stop, or additional odor control measures will need to be implemented to stop that migration off the site.
Understood.
I agree with that.
But and again, the ordinance, we read that article that talks about air pollution. It's very clear what it says. By having a condition of approval, it just means maybe that there's something in writing on this approval that says that you as the developer agree that there's some method of action if complaints come into code and code goes up there and says, oh boy, you're right, this is an issue off-site, that there's a plan of action, and you've listed many things you could do to, offset that issue if it occurs.
Yep.
On the second page of the conditional use findings, it does talk about,
Thank you.
Gary, can you get that mic closer to you?
there you go. It does talk about unsafe or unhelpful conditions within the neighborhood. So does that cover the air as well for unhelpful?
That specifically says that, yes, and it's basically saying that the ordinance requires that. So it's in our finding of fact. And when I was reviewing this earlier, I got to that and said, oh boy, I'm going to have to read that.
Right, and then he has the C outdoor odor control plan in here too.
Yeah.
Are you doing any of the outdoor odor control things now as the business operates today?
We're starting to put up the vegetative buffers. Prior to receiving any plan of approval, we haven't moved forward on, are you talking about just specifically to odor control?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, vegetative buffers, and we have purchased the lemongrass and the lavender seeds to start planting those seeds on the perimeter's edge of the entire lot and the perimeter's edge of the proposed structure.
At this time, I'd like to read the letters from the fire department, from the police department, public works that deal with this application. The first one is from the Fairfield Police Department, from Thomas Gould, our police chief. Dear planning board members, outdoor cannabis grows seem to be a natural progression for facilities in Maine. While I'm sure the owners clearly understand the risks to product loss from potential theft, I wonder if any consideration has been given to odor control. If you recall, several years ago, the police department was handling odor calls in that area of town. The odors do not involve the current business, but neighbors were upset. And I believe it was the guy downstream from you. The ordinance states, in part, the applicant will submit a detailed report on the effective mitigation of any cannabis odors of the proposed operation. This application mentions nothing about odor control for this change of use. I'm concerned for residents that live within a reasonable distance of the facility only as it pertains to odor. That's signed by Chief Thomas Gould.
If I may.
put that in here, but when did he sign that?
Today.
Today.
Okay.
April
that's right.
7th,
So
2025.
did he not see the odor control plan that we looked at
He
tonight?
possibly didn't look at all the documents, but
Okay.
he is just making a point that they got calls as the police chief
Years ago.
from a different facility, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, I read that same letter, and it seemed like he hadn't seen the odor mitigation plan.
Correct.
I have submitted it to him,
Okay.
but it was after he had submitted
I
that.
figured it was something like that.
They crossed.
And there's a letter here from the Fairfield Benton Emergency Services to Fairfield Planning Board. In reference to the outdoor cultivation permit, I do not have any concerns related to fire and life safety. This will not allow for any alteration of current buildings or operations without approval. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Travis Leary, Fire Chief. That is his response to that. Are those the only letters we have on file, McCall?
Correct.
Okay.
Those two. Because Public Works, it's a state-controlled road, and they have their one entrance that they have not altered since they purchased the property.
Right.
Correct.
Got that. Okay, any more discussion from our board on this item?
A question for the applicant. Are you prepared to meet our ordinance around odor control, not traveling outside the site?
I don't understand the question.
Our ordinance around air pollution and odor control dictates that odor is not to travel beyond the property lines.
We're prepared to meet those standards.
Okay. I have no further questions.
I have one question for you. You're talking
Yes.
about, you have essential oils and ways to help them work. It's a little concerning. You mentioned lavender, but there are issues with essential oils as well. And, you know, we're talking about animals. There are a lot of them that are very toxic to animals. Have you guys looked at this stuff before you decided which oils you're going to use?
I mean, to your point, there are a number of different oils that we could use.
Yeah.
Currently, part of our IPM plan, Integrated Pest Management Plan, is to use neem oil.
Okay.
It's essentially peppermint, if you will. And we find that that hasn't caused any harm.
If anything, it'll keep the mice out.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
We are not in public hearing, but you have another comment?
Yes, sir. I understand, Matt, what you're saying about, you know, if he'll agree to the odor not leaving the property. It already does. When you're driving down the road, you can smell it when you're driving down the road. So, and being not allowing complaints to be considered, then that takes, you know, if I smell it, you know, my complaint's not going to matter. I'm less than 2 miles from the facility. My complaint should matter. I'm a tax-paying Fairfield homeowner. I don't think the complaint should be taken out of it. I don't think people are so ignorant and spiteful that people are just going to say, oh, call and complain, call and complain. If the odor's not a problem, I don't have a problem. But if the odor is a problem, I do have a problem. You're very nice. This is nothing personal against you.
None taken.
I have a lot of money invested in my home and my 13 acres, and I want to be able to sell my home whenever that time comes. It's a huge concern for me. I do not like the smell of marijuana. It's horrible, it's offensive, and I feel really bad for the people. When I drive by there and I smell it, I feel bad for the people living all along that side. And I wonder why nobody's here, but at the same time, this meeting's taking place at 5 o'clock. A lot of people are still at work, or they haven't had time to go home, take care of their kids, get them to bed. I would like to request that the meeting is carried on to a time maybe at 7 p.m. some night, when actually people who are working have an opportunity to come here, because I feel like we're not represented, the citizens aren't represented because of the time of the meeting today.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, the ordinance is very clear that this applicant has followed everything in his application, including the postings at the town office, including the postings at the Morning Sentinel, including if we could get people to get involved with the town, that would be great, but we can only follow what's required for us to do and what he did, which is notify the abutting neighbors, put the ad in the paper. All of that's been diligently done by Nicole Martin over here. So the town has fulfilled its requirements, And there should be 20 people here. There is not. Now, I'll be honest with you. I drive up and down North Rock Road several times a day. I've never smelled marijuana at your facility. I can't say the same in years past down the road.
Understood.
Okay? So that's just me. I've never smelled your facility. Neighbor said, geez, I smell it all the time.
Yep.
Maybe some people are more sensitive and that type thing. So are we leaving it, and this is a question for the board, are we leaving it that complaints that come to the town and get to code, that she is jurisdictional in seeing if there's an issue about odor control leaving his facility, not the one down the road, his facility? He's the one standing here today. Is that how we leave it? Or does this board want to talk about some kind of language on a conditional approval? Or does the ordinance speak for itself?
I think the ordinance speaks for itself personally. I want to address your comment again. I never said, and if it came across the way that complaints don't matter, that is not my intention. I don't feel that we should be tying a business license to complaints.
Correct.
Regardless of the business.
I understand what you're saying,
There
but-
can be citizens who could call, and then if the business ability to operate is tied to those complaints, it sets a bad precedent. I think if the ordinance is very clear, the applicant has said that the project will comply with the ordinance. If it's found by our code enforcement officers, our police department, the Office of Cannabis Policy, that it's not complying with the local ordinance, at that point, it would be up to those entities to step in.
I understand, but I do have a very sensitive sense of smell, and I have smelled it, and being that it's all kept inside right now, that's my major concern about it going outside. I just found out about the meeting today on the Fairfield community page, and that's the only reason that I'm here. So that's why I said, I understand what you're saying, everyone, he's met all of his obligations, but I still feel like the time of the day of the meeting is probably a reason why there aren't more people here. I have no problem with this business as long as I can't smell it, but I feel like if I do smell it on my property, and your point to certain essential oils being dangerous, peppermint oil is dangerous to animals. You can look that up, any of you can. What about people that are allergic to like lavender oils and so forth? Even lemongrass is dangerous to animals if it's not processed properly. So, you know, I feel like you're very sincere in doing what you say you're going to do and trying to make this a community-friendly business, and I appreciate that. Like I said, me and a lot of the other homeowners, you know, if they knew about it, would be concerned with our property values. PFAS has like really made us very sensitive and very nervous about bringing new things. I don't know about the biochar or whatever, but as the gentleman, and I'm sorry, this is my first meeting, I don't know anyone's names, but we are very sensitive to things that go into the ground. I don't know what kind of fertilizers you're going to be using. I don't know any of that stuff, any kind of types of sprays. I don't know if that's all mentioned in that application, but I feel like that's something that should be looked at as well. The types of fertilizers and sprays, the biochar, maybe some things should be researched before approving to make sure that we feel that it is safe. But as we all know, years ago, we thought PFAS was safe too.
Okay, public session is closed. Thank you for your comments, really appreciate it. And again, we don't do this in normal session. We have a public hearing, the public speaks. When that hearing is over, but we have allowed you to speak, we hear you, and again, appreciate your comments. So, we are going to move on to finding of fact. Nicole?
Sure.
Okay, medical marijuana dispensary conditional use finding of fact. Name Sam Crockett Dispensary LLC, medical marijuana dispensary, outdoor cultivation at 228 Norwich Walk Road, Unit 2, Map 5, Lot 66-1. I'm only going to read the items that are applicable. A site plan drawn to scale showing at a minimum locations of existing and proposed structures and distance from lot lines and land uses listed, section 9.20D, number 5, to the nearest portion of the building or outdoor cultivation of the medical marijuana dispensary facility. At a minimum, no medical marijuana dispensary facility shall be located within the following distances from specified land use listed below. And this is all public and halfway houses and drug and alcohol and all of those items. A site plan was submitted to the planning board with application. Original plan is by E.S. Coffin Engineering, February 2020. 2025 outdoor grow cultivation area is proposed. Additional site plan elements: existing topographical contour, existing pedestrian and travel ways and parking areas, existing exterior lighting, existing landscaping and visual buffer areas, and existing water, sewer, electrical lines, and outside installation of any machinery or materials. 2025, an estimate of the vehicle trips to be generated by the development at peak hour. This is not changing. Change of dispensary to add outdoor cultivation. Expect similar traffic count. In HHE-200, if a subsurface waste disposal system will be used. A statement from the fire chief that suitable provisions for fire protection have been included. Updated letter, which we have today. A list of names and addresses of all landowners within 200 feet of the property boundaries submitted with the application. Letters to abutters were mailed out on March 28, 2025, and posted on the town office bulletin board, notifying of tonight's public hearing on this application via Zoom meeting and in person, meeting at 61 Water Street at 5 p.m. On March 30th, 2025. A legal notice was placed in the Morning Sentinel newspaper. The development will not create unsafe or unhealthy conditions within the neighborhood in which it is located and shall not create or exacerbate effects upon neighboring properties. This change of medical marijuana dispensary outdoor cultivation will not create unsafe or unhealthy conditions within the neighborhood. Fencing and security cameras will be installed around the outdoor cultivation area. The development will not create or add to traffic congestion below level of service D as defined, and will not create unsafe traffic movements on Norwich Walk Road. This change of medical marijuana dispensary outdoor cultivation will not create or add traffic that exists of a 20 to 25 vehicle trips at peak hour. The development will not result in undue reduction of air or water quality or wildlife habitat and will not cause undue flooding or soil erosion. This change of ownership of medical marijuana dispensary outdoor cultivation will not result in undue reduction of air or water quality or wildlife habitat and will not cause undue flooding, soil erosion. See existing odor control. See outdoor odor control plan, conditions of approval. Outdoor odor control at the medical marijuana dispensary establishment. Submit a detailed report on the effective mitigation of marijuana odors of the proposed operation. Such report shall include proof that the design plan for the purification of air and odor of indoor adult use marijuana establishments shall be prepared and installed by a professional mechanical contractor company to show ventilation systems will properly filter marijuana odors.
So that should not be there, I'm sorry.
Okay, so
Because
that's,
it's just for outdoor, not for indoor.
that's the indoor mitigation.
That was the indoor.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
The next one's NA.
Before we move on from that one, Kevin,
Sure.
Nicole, or I guess to the board, what I would propose we add, in addition to C odor control plan information narrative, I would also add applicant has verbally indicated compliance with the land use ordinance, including odor control, will be achieved.
And that can be that could be the condition of approval, which basically states the given, okay? And that's kind of important, okay?
Yeah, I think condition of approval or included in one of the findings of fact
Absolutely.
have the same weight, but
Very good.
however we want to put
Thank you.
forward.
Development will cause an undue strain. Sorry for reading that one. That, again, is only applicable to indoor mitigation buildings of grows. The development will not cause undue strain on public facilities or services, including public roads, water supply, sewage disposal, solids waste systems, police, educational, or otherwise. Private water wells and septic systems serve this property as shown on the site plan. This is a state road and traffic will remain 20 to 25 vehicles at peak hour. No educational services are required for this development. The applicant has sufficient financial and technical capacity to complete the development. There is no construction proposed as part of this application. This is an outdoor, open-air, outdoor cultivation. Fencing already exists, and security cameras already exist on the property. Development is consistent with the Fairfield Comprehensive Plan and in compliance with state law as well as ordinances, rules, and regulations of the town, including the performance standards of this ordinance, unless the board acts to waive the said standard. The reuse of existing commercial property at this previously occupied commercial property is consistent with Fairfield's Comprehensive Plan for Economic Development, Job Creation, and is compliant with state and local laws and regulations. A statement regarding the use, storage, and disposal of dangerous, toxic, special, or hazardous waste, either solid, liquid, or gaseous, and special measures available to deal with them in the appropriate fashion, as described in the narrative of the application. Floor plan shows the location and required notices, warning signs detailed the medical marijuana dispensary business, section 9.20, number 17.
So that's not, that doesn't apply because it's open air.
That's NA, gotcha. A detailed report outlining how the establishment will meet the security requirements, medical marijuana dispensary facility security plan with one waiver requested, section 9.2, number 18, to be consistent with state law. See waiver request to keep recordings for 45 days at the facility to be consistent with state law. Signs in the accordance of the Land Use Ordinance, Section 8.3, and State of Maine signage laws. All exterior signs exist. Section 9.24, medical marijuana dispensary business standards in the Fairfield Land Use Ordinance, numbers 1 through 22. Standards numbers 1 through 22 have been received and they have been met. Conditions of approval of this medical marijuana dispenser condition use permit.
So are we adding that one condition that odor
Yes.
shall not travel beyond the property line?
Say it again.
Isn't that the way the ordinance reads, though?
It does.
Yeah, I mean,
That you verbally agreed.
I don't think it should be a conditional approval,
Okay.
Kevin. I think it should go under the odor control at the medical marijuana dispensary establishment, where it says see odor control plan information narrative. We add to the finding of fact there that the applicant has verbally agreed to that, or
Meet
has
that.
verbally indicated that compliance with the land use ordinance, including the odor control, will be achieved.
And again, you have explained many methods of achieving that goal. It's your responsibility to achieve that goal.
Understood.
Okay, so it's as simple as that, and it's very clear. Our ordinance says that shall not pollute, and apparently that hasn't been adhered to throughout our history here, but we're trying to do better,
Yes, sir.
okay? Anything else, Nicole? These written requests, these waiver requests applicable?
They are, because he didn't have to do any of those. So, traffic study, I mean, he's not adding additional traffic.
Correct.
He's not doing any improvements. He's not doing any construction. Public Works is not involved. It's a state-controlled road. So I don't know if you...
Okay.
you're up to waiver requests and.
I will read what's here. Written request for waiver of section 9.24, number 18A was submitted but to the planning board on March 26, 2025, requesting a waiver for the requirement of preserving all security recordings off-site for 45 days. They will preserve the recordings on-site for the licensee's recording device to be consistent with state law requirement. Stormwater plan, erosion control, estimated.
It should be demand, sorry.
Okay.
Spelling error. They have a well, and they have septics, and they're just outdoor, open air. So, your well water,
Yes.
it would come from your private well.
Yes.
Based on the above facts and conclusions, on April 7th, 2025, the planning board voted to approve without conditions your medical marijuana dispensary conditional use permit application for outdoor open-air cultivation, area not more than 20,000 square feet of mature cannabis plant canopy per section 9.24C, number 2 of the Town of Fairfield Land Use Ordinance. I take a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the application as presented with the additions to the finding of fact around the applicant has verbally indicated compliance with the land use ordinance, including odor control, will be achieved.
I have a motion. Looking for a second. I have a second. Any questions or comments? I'd call for a vote. All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Items by the public, the clerk, or members.
Nicole, last year we updated the land use ordinance,
Yes.
and we had talked about potentially looking at one ordinance a year being updated. Is that budgeted for this year?
Not that I know of.
Is it something that's too late to go to the town council and request funds in order to update a section of the
Right.
ordinance?
As far as I know, the budgeting season is done, that the town council has completed their budget process, but you have a counselor here. Is that true? Can they submit a budget request item at this time, or is it too late?
Too late, have you been in December?
Okay, thank you. So December would have been the cutoff to request funds for this year.
Did we request funds in order to do the land use ordinance upgrade, or was that
We
just
had
general
request-
funding of the planning board?
Right.
Because I know
well,
that the planning board has just general funds to utilize.
I don't know how much money is put aside for the planning board to utilize. I do know that we tried to go for a grant last year, and we did not win that grant. That's how we were trying to get our ordinances
Thank you.
upgraded.
Okay. I guess two things. Would we, and probably you or Michelle, be able to reach out to, was it KV-COG or who
Right.
worked with us to get a estimate as to what it would take cost-wise to support updating, I don't know what ordinance we want to choose, probably subdivision ordinance makes sense.
Yes.
To get that upgraded, and then it's something that either we can check with the town council if there happens to be funds available within the planning board's budget or some other means, so we just know what it would take, and then if money can't be found this year, if we
Request
could
it
make
for
a
next year.
request for funding next year.
Sure.
Because I
I'll
think
ask
those are really
Michelle.
worthwhile efforts on our part as a board to make sure those are updated.
In the subdivision ordinance, we have other subdivisions coming to us, so it would be really good to keep an eye on, because we just went through, a major subdivision here, and what happens if this happens, and what happens? Those reviews are a pain, but they're very fruitful.
And it's a really great way for board members to become very aware of what's in our ordinances.
Yep.
Right. We
We
go
went
line by
li-
line. Should
Right.
this stay? Should this go? What is it missing? What is it not discuss?
Yeah.
Right?
Going through the land use ordinance was incredibly
For the
helpful.
new board members, keep in mind that we appreciate you volunteering, and we don't expect that that you've gone and taken a 4-year degree in in engineering. At any time you see these amount of plans come across you, and you're going through this saying, what? I said this to Highway Department guy one time. These are pretty in-depth. He looks at them all the time. In my previous life, I looked at them all the time. Feel free to ask questions, and even, hey, could we show up 10 minutes or 15 minutes early and go through these plans? And would you explain to me what these lines mean and what this means? That's how you learn, by asking those questions. And we don't expect you to overnight digest what this says, but at least ask the questions. We gladly would give you 20 minutes and say, hey, this is a site plan, this is what you're looking for, here's the cross sections. This guy right here is reasonably familiar with water systems and mechanical systems. So we need to get you up to speed. Feel free to ask those questions. We don't expect that you know this. We don't expect that you 100% understand it, but we do have a responsibility to explain it to you. Okay, so feel free. That's how you learn. Okay, and these are not that intimidating. But
I understand them very well. I looked right at it, knew exactly what I was looking at, so
perfect,
not a
thank you.
problem.
Perfect, thank you. That's great. But again, anybody that needs any coaching, just ask. We gladly would spend some time. Any other questions? Public, clerk?
No, nothing.
Nothing. Public, nothing. I'd call for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? Thank you for coming tonight, everybody.
Thank you.